I'm Hiroshi Watanabe. I'm a fine art photographer based in Los Angeles. The photography that I do is not to teach someone or to trying to convince someone with my ideas. I try to look at different things, read about different things, and see about different things. And once in a while, there is something that really triggers my curiosity. With my camera, I start traveling and I get to the location. Could be an area, country, different section of the world. And I try to document what I see. When I do portrait, I pretty much know, I do the research first, and I decide on what kind of people I'm going to photograph. And so, it could be actors, it could be a group of people, and as a series or the project, I need to do a portrait of one particular kind of people. Where I do landscape, it's wide open because basically, I'm interested in what's happening in that country or the region. So when I go there, but of course, people live normal life, no matter where, people are living a daily life and there's different things happening. So I try to see what they are as they are. I don't want to force my thinking or thought onto someone else. So I try to be open and try to photograph as I see. So that's the different approach. When I photograph, I try to learn things, but at the same time, I try to avoid a certain kind of thought into my photography. Being ambiguous gives room to think about, okay? And giving another layers to look at something also blur the ideas about the subject. And that's what I'm trying to do is see it as they are, not from a point of my view, but from straight, honest look at a certain subject. And sometimes it's better to put some layer in front of it so that you don't think that it's a certain thing, but it could be something else. That's the ambiguity I'm trying to create. And it's also raised the curiosity level by doing so, because if you see something clearly, you see that and you know what that is, and that's the end of the story. But if you don't see it clearly, then you have to really try to see it, and then that raises the level of curiosity, therefore more interest. I make black and white photographs most of the time. Only time I did not use the black and white film was when I went to North Korea and documented that country, 2006 and 2007. That's the only time I used color film. Other than that, I use black and white. First, I decide on project. I travel there. I photograph there. And most of the time, I forget about the pictures I took because there are many things going on, and I don't know what was on the film. Not too much in the detail. I have general ideas. So then I come back. Then I develop the film, and then I make the contact sheet. And then I studied the contact sheet very carefully, one by one, the 1,000 pictures from one trip. And then I try to discover the image that I expected, but more so with the images that I didn't remember, or the images that I didn't know that I had. And that's the new discovery stage I enjoy. And then I make the print in a darkroom, and which I enjoy very much. With digital photography, there is less ambiguity, there was less excitement with me, because when I shoot the digital camera, then I see exactly the result in the back of the camera, right? So, and I study that, I can go back. So it's always, my interest is not about the image I just made. My interest is something in front of that, which is my subject, okay? When I'm looking at it, that's what's most important. I don't want to think about anything else. So when I photograph, and then that's the only thing I have in mind. I'm not thinking about how the picture is going to look like, or if I did a correct exposure, or anything like that. But digital camera lets you do that, and it's good that it lets you do that. But when you have the ability to do that, you tend to rely on that. I choose content what interests me. I don't do it for someone else. I don't have agenda. I don't work for anyone else. Therefore, most important thing to choose the topic is if I'm genuinely and really curious about something. The way I choose project is that when I'm open-mindedly looking for different things, sometimes the project comes to me because I start listening or I start seeing different things that's happening in this world, and I'm get really curious. That's something, I don't go for something I know already because it's not exciting. But if I find something really I don't understand, or something that's totally changed my mind about something, if that's something happening, then that's the time I go to travel. Well, the first photograph I should point out is the Ellis Island to New York, which is the image I made in 1999 when I was visiting Ellis Island. And I went there because I wanted to kind of feel what the immigrant many years ago felt who came to the United States, because I am also an immigrant in a way, because I came from Japan, I lived in the United States. So I wanted to kind of see, what's the people from outside of the country, outside the United States, felt about the United States when they arrived. So that's my motivation to go to Ellis Island. So I walked around and I saw a window, and there was a screen, and with the wind, the screen was kind of flopping, and I saw the skyscrapers in New York landscape, and that was really beautiful, so I photographed it. White Sands, Midway Atoll. Midway Atoll is somewhere I went because, again, I'm from Japan. I live in the United States, and there is a Pacific Ocean, big ocean, and Midway, as the name suggests, it's a tiny, tiny island right in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I think it's about 5-6 hours flight from Honolulu towards, in a smaller airplane. And that's how you get there. And I was curious about the place because it's the midpoint, but as well as that was a place, like Iwo Jima, the Midway was the big battlefield during World War II. And because Japan lost with the battle, the war turned around, and that's, I think, the first sign of the United States was winning the war. And I was really curious about the island because of the name and location, because of my background. So I decided to travel there. Small island, nothing else except the airfield and bungalows. And I stayed there for 1 week. There's nothing to do, totally nothing to do. And I think it's very interesting that when I have nothing else to do and there's nothing else to photograph, I sometimes find something that turns out to be very interesting photograph, and Huachan is one of them. I was just walking around, there's nothing else to do, and I went to there was a greenhouse, and I just taking pictures of the flowers in the greenhouse. It's tiny, the greenhouse. And then, all of a sudden, all the birds came in on top of me and landed on the greenhouse, on the screen. And I looked up and I see their feet and the feathers, and with the lights that create shadows, and that's, I thought, wow, this is the photograph that I'm going to make. So, I was very happy. And things like that happens a lot of times. When I expect the least, something really nice happens. The other image I can talk about is El Arbolito Park, Quito, Ecuador. That is an image that looks like a maze with someone walking around or hanging around, but it's actually a park's centerpiece. It's a big globe made by irons welded together, and there was a boy climbing, so I went down and photographed it. I happened to find the situation when I was working on a portrait series at a psychiatric hospital in Quito, Ecuador. I am Japanese, meaning foreigner, living in a country, the foreign country, which is the United States. So I happen to see the world from a different point of view. There's a lot of photographers that I admired, and I studied photography very carefully. So let's see, photographers that comes to my mind right now is Diane Arbus, Richard Avedon, Walker Evans, August Sander, but probably more important is Robert Frank, and people like that. But there are also new photographers that I admired: Keith Carter, Alex Toth, Raymond Meeks, Roger Barron, the recent ones, who lives in South America. They are my heroes. I chose to add ambiguity in my images because I want to challenge other people to see if what they know is really what they know, or could be something else. That's why I like to being ambiguous. Actually, I like having other people editing my work, because this way I can learn from other people. If I do it, I know how to do it, and of course it's my work, I can do it, but it's not as challenging that working with other people, because they gave me another input that I don't know, and I can give them my input to them. So back and forth, this interaction is what I like about the book editing. I put other elements in front of my photographs or the subject, because this way sometimes I get different look, but more importantly, by adding layers, there's element that I cannot see through or cannot see directly. Therefore, it gives another meaning in the photographs. Darkroom is a place where I can get lost, and I focus my emotions and attentions into making the image without bothered by no one else. It's a good place to meditate in a way. It's my temple. I'm walking around trying to find something, and I find things. That's what findings are about.